Ray tracing is a graphics feature that improves how light, shadows, and reflections behave in a game. Instead of using simple tricks to fake lighting, ray tracing simulates how light works in the real world. When ray tracing is enabled, light rays are calculated as they bounce off surfaces, reflect in mirrors, pass through glass, and create soft shadows. This makes reflections more accurate, shadows more realistic, and lighting more natural. For example, with ray tracing turned on, a puddle on the ground can reflect objects that are actually behind your character. Without ray tracing, that reflection is usually fake or missing entirely. Ray tracing does not improve gameplay or make you better at a game. It only improves visual realism and immersion. DLSS stands for Deep Learning Super Sampling, and it is a performance-boosting feature available on NVIDIA graphics cards. DLSS works by rendering the game at a lower resolution and then using artificial intelligence to upscale the image back to a higher resolution. The AI is trained to reconstruct missing details so the final image looks sharp and clean. The main advantage of DLSS is that it increases FPS without heavily reducing image quality. In many cases, DLSS can even look better than native resolution because it reduces shimmering and visual noise. DLSS is extremely useful when playing at high resolutions like 1440p or 4K, or when ray tracing is enabled. It allows your GPU to work less while still delivering smooth performance. FSR stands for Fidelity, FX Super Resolution, and it is AMD's alternative to DLSS. FSR works on the same basic idea as DLSS by rendering games at a lower resolution and then upscaling them to a higher one. However, FSR does not rely on specialized AI hardware in the same way DLSS does. One of the biggest advantages of FSR is compatibility. FSR works on AMD GPU and NVIDIA GPU, and even older graphics cards. It also works on consoles. FSR usually does not look quite as clean as DLSS, especially in motion, but it still provides a large performance boost with acceptable image quality. FSR is especially useful for budget builds or older GPUs that struggle with modern games. It allows players to increase resolution or graphics settings while keeping FPS playable. Like DLSS, FSR includes different modes such as quality, balanced, and performance. Frame generation is a feature that increases FPS by creating additional frames using AI. Instead of rendering every single frame normally, the GPU generates intermediate frames based on motion data from previous frames. This effectively increases the frame rate without fully rendering every frame. For example, if your game is running at 60 frames per second, frame generation can make it appear closer to 120 frames per second. The main benefit of frame generation is smoother motion, especially in visually demanding games. The downside is that it can slightly increase input latency, which means your inputs may feel less responsive. Because of this, frame generation is best used in single-player games rather than competitive multiplayer games. VRAM stands for Video Random Access Memory, and it is the memory used by your GPU. VRAM stores textures, shaders, models, and other graphical data that the GPU needs quick access to while rendering a game. The higher the resolution and texture quality, the more VRAM is required. If a game uses more VRAM than your GPU has available, performance can drop significantly. This can cause stuttering, texture pop-in, or sudden FPS drops. VRAM capacity is especially important for high-resolution gaming such as 1440p and 4K, as well as for games with high-resolution texture packs. Anti-Aliasing is a graphics feature that reduces jagged edges on objects. Jagged edges appear because screens are made of pixels, and diagonal or curved lines do not align perfectly with square pixels. Anti-Aliasing smooths these edges by blending colors between pixels, making objects look more natural and less sharp. There are many types of anti-aliasing, such as MSAA, FXAA, TAA, and others. Some types focus on quality, while others focus on performance. Higher quality anti-aliasing methods improve image clarity but can reduce FPS. Lower quality methods are faster but may blur the image slightly. Anti-aliasing is mainly a visual improvement and does not affect gameplay. Anisotropic filtering improves the clarity of textures viewed at an angle. Without anisotropic filtering, textures on roads, floors, or walls can appear blurry when viewed from a distance or angle. With anisotropic filtering enabled, textures remain sharp and detailed even when viewed from far away. This feature has very little impact on performance on modern GPUs, which is why it is almost always recommended to keep it turned on. Most games allow you to increase anisotropic filtering up to values like 8 times or 16 times without noticeable FPS loss. Anisotropic filtering improves visual clarity without affecting performance in most cases. G-Sync is a display technology developed by NVIDIA that synchronizes your monitor's refresh rate with your GPU's frame rate. When your FPS does not match your monitor's refresh rate, screen tearing can occur. Screen tearing happens when parts of multiple frames appear on the screen at the same time. G-Sync eliminates screen tearing and reduces stuttering by allowing the monitor to adjust its refresh rate dynamically. This results in smoother motion and a more consistent visual experience, especially when FPS fluctuates. G-Sync requires a compatible NVIDIA GPU and a G-Sync supported monitor. G-Sync does not increase FPS, but it makes games feel significantly smoother and more stable. FreeSync is AMD's variable refresh rate technology that synchronizes your monitor's refresh rate with your GPU's frame rate. When your FPS fluctuates, FreeSync helps prevent screen tearing and reduces stuttering by allowing the monitor to adjust dynamically. This creates smoother motion and a more consistent visual experience during gameplay. One major advantage of FreeSync is wide compatibility, since it works with AMD GPUs and is also supported by many NVIDIA GPUs. FreeSync monitors are usually more affordable and more common than G-Sync monitors. VSync is a feature that locks your FPS to your monitor's refresh rate. VSync prevents screen tearing by forcing the GPU to wait until the monitor is ready to display the next frame. The downside of VSync is increased input latency and potential stuttering if your FPS drops below the monitor's refresh rate. VSync can feel fine in slower-paced games, but it often feels bad in fast shooters where responsiveness matters. VSync is an older solution to screen tearing and is generally replaced by G-Sync or FreeSync when available. Shaders are small programs that run on the GPU to calculate how pixels, lighting, and effects should look. Shaders control how surfaces reflect light, how shadows appear, and how visual effects like smoke, fire, and water behave. More complex shaders result in better visuals but require more GPU power. Games with advanced lighting and visual effects rely heavily on shaders to look modern and realistic. When a game says it is compiling shaders, it means the GPU is preparing these programs so the game can run smoothly. If a game stutters the first time you load into an area, it is often because shaders are still being compiled in the background. NVENC is a hardware video encoder built into NVIDIA GPUs. It allows your GPU to record or stream gameplay with minimal performance impact. Instead of using your CPU to encode video, NVENC handles the process directly on the GPU. Because NVENC is handled by dedicated hardware, it keeps your game running smoothly while recording or streaming. This makes NVENC extremely useful for content creators, streamers, and anyone recording gameplay. Thank you for watching, guys. Make sure to check out these other videos as well.